So if my 15-year-old self were to see who I am today, I would be shocked because all I wanted to do at the time was play World of Warcraft. When I was a teenager, I actually had very little interest in anything that was related to health or fitness or just making better choices for my overall lifestyle. I'll confess there was actually a part of me that would get angry with people who I thought were healthier than me. I thought that anyone who was different from me and my desire to play video games and play WoW thought less of me, so I thought less of them, and it created this vicious cycle of self-sabotaging thoughts. I even remember getting hyper-aggressive and really defensive with people who would genuinely try to help me because they didn't understand that I just wanted to play WoW or eat junk food. You could say I put a lot of my identity into who I was playing World of Warcraft. Fast forward to now, I am a very different person and I go to the gym very regularly, and I'm very proud to have changed a lot of that negative energy into something positive. I'm now currently in the best shape of my life, but there's still parts of me that does not feel that this comes naturally to me. To paint the full picture, I weighed 250 pounds in high school at my top end weight, and the way I started that journey at all was doing karate and keto. When I was 16 years old, my father had a heart attack at 48. He's still alive and well nowadays, but that was a big kick in the butt to be like, hey Jags, you should really do something about this. So I started doing keto and training really hard for karate, and I went from 250 pounds to 185 pounds. Shortly after that, I graduated high school and moved to Orange County, California in August of 2011. Now, I do not recommend doing keto because it is highly restrictive, and when I came off of keto, I spent maybe a good 2 or 3 months just crazy binge eating on all the carbs that I could find because I wanted to eat carbs again, and I could eat carbs again, and I wasn't training for a karate-related event. Ultimately, I realized that was not a good decision, so I started learning about what calories were. Once I discovered calories in and calories out and energy balance, I decided to just eat 1,200 calories per day and run 5 miles daily, and that helped me lose another 50 pounds. Now, when I did that 1,200 calorie diet, the diet was not good, and do not recommend doing this either. I ate exclusively Nature Valley honey and oat bars, or I would fill a red Solo cup to the brim with frozen grapes and then throw a handful of almonds on top, and that was a meal most of the time. And I would do that 5 times per day because I thought that eating 5 times a day would stoke the metabolism, and just eating significantly less calories would make me lose weight faster. While it did help me lose weight really, really fast, I was severely calorie restricted to the point where when I finished, all I wanted to do was binge. The only reason why I was able to achieve that kind of crazy diet is because I was working as an office manager assistant and assistant bookkeeper at a board game company, and it was pretty low stress, so I didn't really have a lot asked of me, so I could just get away being brain foggy and just less of an effective human being for a period of time. Obviously, I had to stop doing that because it was not sustainable, so I decided to go back to school. I started eating more calories and going out with friends again because I didn't want to be the person that would bring granola bars to every single outing and ignoring all of the other fun food experiences that people were doing. So when I started going out with friends, what ended up happening is binge eating. I would eat everything in sight to a point where everyone I knew was like, dang, Jags can put it away. And I was like, yeah, I know. And I got kind of proud of that, and perhaps I shouldn't have, but that's besides the point. Long story short, when it comes to food, I actually do enjoy food very much. Beyond me just binge eating, it is also a hobby where I cook and I like experiencing things. I'm not a big alcohol drinker, but my vice is certainly food. When I was binge eating a ton of food when I was in my early 20s, it came with a lot of just really bad behaviors that included trying to seclude myself and eating alone, finding boxes of cookies and just hiding them from myself, and just doing really weird shit. Obviously, binge eating is not a good thing, and I was well aware of that. So what I ended up doing was purging. Bulimia! There were periods where I would eat thousands of calories in a single sitting and then be so upset with myself that I would purge. Now, also at the time, it's worth mentioning that I started smoking weed pretty regularly. I don't touch the stuff now, but the issue with that is you get the munchies when you smoke weed. So the cycle went, I would eat a ton of food while I was high, and then I would feel sick to a point where I would vomit, and then after that, my stomach was empty, and I would feel really gross because I had just vomited. So I'd go smoke again just to try and make myself feel better, and hey, guess what? I'm hungry again, let's go get more food. That was a terrible vicious cycle that I knew was not good for me, but it was fun because I was playing video games by myself, eating boxes of Oreos and Nutter Butters and all the fun food things that we tend to enjoy in our teenage years and early 20s. What really encouraged me to stop was actually a dentist visit. When I went to the dentist was like, hey, the back of your teeth are eroding. Are you sick? And I was like, no, not at all. Apparently, when there's a bunch of stomach acid on your teeth, it starts to erode your teeth. So he kind of caught me red-handed, and I was just like, nope, I really don't want to lose any teeth, because when you're 23, being toothless is not a good look when you are trying to find a girlfriend. So I quit marijuana cold turkey, and I haven't touched the stuff since. Every once in a while, I will get an urge to partake, whether it's at a party with friends or someone just happens to have it and I smell it, but I don't. And the reason why is because I know it really impacts my food behaviors, and I know that's not good for me, and that's not gonna be good for my mental health, so I don't touch the stuff anymore. So in an attempt to start fixing all of the damage I had done through that period of time, about 2 years where I was doing bulimic behaviors, I started running again. And on top of that, I did hire a personal trainer, and they started introducing me to something a little bit more progressive and sustainable when it comes to health. But I really wasn't touching weights other than whatever my personal trainer would show me, because I didn't really identify myself with someone who wanted to go to the gym. At the time, I was still playing a ton of video games, League of Legends, Dota, Battlefield 3, and I just wanted to be that gamer kid. I didn't want to identify as someone who went to the gym because I perceived as people who went to the gym thought less of me, so I thought less of them. Vicious cycle. But where that changed was when a YouTuber, his name is Swifty on YouTube, you can look him up. He made a ton of World of Warcraft content, and I looked up to him so much. And on his IRL channel, he posted some content about fitness and getting healthy. And I was like, wait a second. One of my idols, a high-ranked arena-playing Night Elf warrior, is now going to the gym. Wait, is that something I should do? So there were a couple times where I would try and copy his workouts. I had a little apartment gym that I would go to, and I didn't have a barbell, but there were some dumbbells and stuff, so I did a bunch of lunges and other exercises that I could pull together based on the videos that he was posting. So about this time, I was 23, 24-ish, and my overall fitness goals were to try and correct the damage I had done and try and look good for the opposite sex, because when you're young, 20, and male, that's just a thing that happens, and we're not going to ignore that fact, because that's what guys do, or at least a lot of guys do when they start trying to better themselves. That's a layer of it that we should probably acknowledge. So at this point, I was finally touching some weights, but it was very aimless, and no structure was there to help me be consistent. So I was doing a lot of program hopping, trying this program, that program, bro splits, etc. It was not consistent at all. I was still copying Swifty's workouts, but it got to a point where YouTube was feeding me different fitness video content. So the YouTube channels Buff Dudes, Max Tuning, Untamed Strength, lots of other YouTube channels were coming in my algorithm, and I started clicking on them. Because of my habits with World of Warcraft, it was super easy for me to get obsessed with things and go through dailies or start grinding to try and learn new things and try and complete quests or make progress. A lot of the YouTube channels I was following were focused more on powerlifting and bodybuilding, so I started learning more about bulking and cutting and compound lifts and reps and all the stuff that's involved when it comes to actually having a consistent and effective bodybuilding / powerlifting program. So I started doing more stuff like that. Now, one of the things that really appealed to me was bulking and cutting, because bulking, I can eat more food, hell yeah. Cutting, I've done that before. I lost weight from 250 pounds to 136 pounds. I can do that. But it's very different when you're doing it for bodybuilding, powerlifting goals versus just trying to lose weight on a scale. Perhaps the best thing that happened to me was that I invested in a real coach. I reached out to the bodybuilding and powerlifting coaching service, 3D Muscle Journey, and I was paired with Alberto Nunez. And that was the best thing I did for my training. While Alberto did not give me any magical programs or exercises, because there are none, he did really help me with the wisdom and the philosophy and the just overall mindset towards being consistent when it comes to these goals, because it just takes time, a lot of it. So for me, training is pretty easy to check off now. I can do it consistently. I can easily spend 6 to 7 hours in the gym at least each week because I enjoy it. That's just become a hobby that I want to spend more time doing. But nutrition is still hard for me. I'll confess that over the last 10 years since I've really started trying to nail down what my fitness goals were, I've only hovered between about 145 pounds and 165 pounds. There is part of me that has wanted to do the dreamer bulk and get up to 180 pounds and get really, really strong, but I've always been afraid. And the reason why is I am afraid that I will become the person who I was in high school, where I was not interested in fitness. I would just let myself go completely. So I've never done that dreamer bulk because I'm like, I don't want to be that. And maybe that wouldn't serve me, so I don't. In the same light, I don't get down below 145 pounds because, generally speaking, I have recognized that when I get to a certain level of leanness, I become significantly more irritable, very easy to annoy, and just less social overall. And that doesn't align with my values either. So because I've never really committed to fluffy jags or super duper lean jags, I've never actually seen myself as really impressive when it comes to my physique. Ultimately, I still have a lot of guilt and shame around food, whether I'm 145 pounds or 165 pounds. There's just something about food that makes me anxious. Now, unfortunately, that lack of confidence for me makes me upset with myself, because if my 15-year-old self saw who I am today, I would slap my shit up, because I'd be like, Jex, come on, dude, like, you should be so grateful. And I remember there was a period of my life where when I would hear someone who I thought was lean say that they felt fat, I would get angry and upset, because it made me feel like you don't even know what it's like to be on this end of the spectrum. I wouldn't say anything, of course, but that's just how I felt. And to make matters worse, we now live in a digital age where you are a single thumb scroll away from someone who is on a completely different journey, and just seeing their progress can honestly be threatening sometimes, where it's like, dang, you're crushing it. why am I not getting those same results? Or must be nice for X reason, Y reason. And to make matters worse, media just in general pushes this standard on us that can be realistic for certain short periods of time, but it definitely is not for an overall lifestyle. Now, the unfortunate consequence of being exposed to that kind of content so consistently is that it makes us choose bad things when it comes to our health and fitness. We start suddenly changing our program, changing our goals, and ultimately spinning our wheels. And I've done that before many times. So in an attempt to try and turn the blinders on, it's very easy to start tracking everything, tracking weight to the gram, tracking every grain of food that enters your body, and it becomes a job and a chore. But those numbers are non-negotiable, so no one can argue that, right? So I've begun leaning into all of the numbers of fitness for me, and what that does is it has now made me blind to the real progress that I have made amongst my friends and family that they perceive, because, well, I look great to them, but the scale isn't going down, or I missed my macros on this day, or I couldn't track my weight on this day and the average is off, and it just gives me anxiety, and that's not a good way to live either. But the reason why I'm sharing this is because I feel that I am not the only one that is experiencing this. Let me give you some context. About 6 years ago, when I was obsessing over my body fat percentage and losing weight at one point, I weighed in at 146-ish pounds, and I took a body fat test. I used the hydrostatic method. There are multiple, but we're just gonna use this one because it's the most cost-effective and it's still pretty accurate. And at the time, 146 pounds, and I had about 12.2% body fat. As of July 15th, 2023, I had a very similar body fat test, and I weighed in at 145.2 pounds. And my body fat percentage now at a very similar, I'll just say equal body weight, is 11.1% body fat. And that looks like this. Now, I'm relatively happy with these photos, but it's worth mentioning that under the right lighting, whether I had trained recently, whether I have a pump, it's gonna drastically change the way I look. And under certain poses, it doesn't look the same under every condition. Now, I'm still happy at this because this is technically the lowest body fat percentage I have ever been, and I wanted to document that, and I wanted to take some really nice photos so that I could remember this as I continue pursuing my fitness goals and my health goals. Back in 2009, when I started trying to change my lifestyle for more healthy decisions, I wasn't necessarily interested in these photos as a result. I wanted to just not die because I was afraid for my father, who, like I said, had a heart attack when he was 48. Obviously, I took that moment when I was 16 years old and realized that I should change and manifested it into something that was good for me as an adult. There was a point where it has been laced with it's never enough. You see, living healthy forces you to not only reshape your body, but it also forces you to reshape your mind. While I do know that leaner Jags is the same person as fluffier Jags, the energy that I have is very different between those two people. There is a point when a diet becomes all-consuming, and thinking about your next meal or just thinking about how hard training is going to be in the next couple of hours because you had all of your carbs for the day for that next training session, there's a point in which just the only thing you can think about is food, getting lean, and just whatever bare minimum that you can get away with for the other things related to your life. It kind of sucks because you just have to be patient and consistent, and sometimes you can't be patient anymore for certain things because life happens. As I've gotten older, I have changed my perspective on dieting and getting lean. And this is something I am struggling with, but still learning. And that perspective is that being a more effective, more productive, happier, better person is better than trying to look the part. Because looking one way and being one way are two very different things. And I know that when I'm irritable and hangry and frustrated, I'm just less pleasant to be around. But when I'm well-fed enough, I am so productive. I want to take photos of all my friends. I want to share things. I'll drive everywhere. I'm the DD because I'm just happy and cool to be there and flexible versus, oh, I'm lean, I'm dieting, I got to bring all my meals. I might as well just not go because it's just annoying. And I don't want to be the latter. I want to be the former, where I'm fun to be around. That is not an excuse, though, to make unhealthy choices. And I think we all can agree that us as human beings have a general idea of what is healthy versus what is not. The issue is that when starting fitness, there is this perception that your overall quality as a person is based either on the body weight scale or how much body fat you have or the number that you're lifting, and that's not true. And that is something that is very hard to either learn and unlearn, whether you're starting your journey or not. At the beginning of this year, I told myself that I wanted to lose some body fat, but most of all, I wanted to improve my relationship with food. Because my history of bulimia and binge eating and playing too much video games that I would pair with food and marijuana, those were not things that served me, and they poisoned my relationship with food. And now, being 30 years old, I am trying to fix that. And doing super lean, low body fat percentage bodybuilding and trying to fix my relationship with food do not match. So it would be foolish for me to try and put those two together. The issue is that we sometimes forget that beyond our health and fitness and what we see about ourselves is that we are also maybe an artist or a parent or a friend or a sibling or important to someone else in our life. And we just like to self-sabotage ourselves because that's the only thing we see versus how we can improve the lives of those around us. And it's very easy to get trapped in our own thoughts and our own goals when there's something about our lives, especially fitness, that becomes all-encompassing in our brains. Whether you're at the beginning of your journey or you are walking the path already, it's always worth asking, who do you want to be? And I'm not going to give you some influencer bullshit about being your higher self because I still want to be able to play World of Warcraft or Diablo 4 or Tears of the Kingdom and go to all-you-can-eat shabu or Korean barbecue and have ice cream after, or share a bottle of wine with my girlfriend and talk about our goals and dreams. I still want that. The issue with most fitness goals, especially when you're starting out, is that you suddenly believe that you are never allowed to touch any of those things again. When I was 15 and I would hear that, like, stop eating junk food and stuff, you're like, but I want that. You're evil. You're trying to take something away from me. And that does not feel good, which creates that clear divide between our identities of someone who might make healthier decisions and someone who does not. The biggest thing here is balance, and as cliche as that sounds, it depends on to what extremes do you want to live. Do you want to drink a ton of alcohol and eat a Costco-sized sheet cake and also have health and fitness goals? You're going to be training a lot to balance that. Or if you can reel that back, then you can have your cake and eat it too. And there might be times where you have to hit pause on some of those things for a time, but then you can have them again. We all have a habit of missing the forest for the trees when it comes to fitness. And it's very easy to forget our goals, especially with social media, because it can poison and warp what we are actually trying to do that's best for us versus what someone else is doing. There is almost a part of me that wishes I could unsee all of the fitness things I've seen over the last 15 years because I probably would be a lot easier on myself, but also at the same time, I may not have pushed myself as much. So again, becomes a balance. Obviously, we can't undo what we've done over the last year, 5 years, 10 years. But the thing here is that you can start at some point, hopefully in the near future, and start pushing towards something. And if you are putting in the time and being consistent over a long period of time, hey, 15 years from now, that progress will turn into something really awesome for you. And it has so many wildly awesome possibilities for other parts of life, not just what is your bench bro or what is the weight on the scale. And I think the fallacy with some of the fitness mindsets that exist today is that it's this expectation that you'll get to this end goal and then stop. And it's like, all right, I've achieved it, time to go do something else. When in reality, when it comes to fitness, it's not just like, all right, hit the scale weight, time to go back to who I was. It really just becomes accepting that if you want to do fitness related things for your overall health, that has to become part of your identity. Now, it doesn't have to become an all-encompassing part of your identity, but you have to say, hey, I am someone who lifts weights or goes on runs. And you can also say that I am someone who plays World of Warcraft or plays the Switch and eats bread. But to the degree in which you choose any of those identities is up to you. Now, for me, I've obviously encroached on this identity for myself to the point where I see these nice pictures and I'm very, very grateful for them. But because I have seen the other end of the fitness spectrum, I'm like, dang, it could be better. And maybe I will get to that point. But right now, it's not worth it for me because of other values that I have that I need to emphasize in my life more now versus getting to 140 pounds again. Seeing as I just finished this 4-month dieting phase, I am not suddenly turning off my fitness identity and going to eat all of the junk food and becoming someone who I'm not. I did, at the end of my diet, go to Koko Ichibanya, which is Japanese curry, and I enjoyed a restraint-free, restriction-free meal where I had a little bit of naan, I had as much curry as I wanted, and I had some ice cream after, and that was pretty awesome. But after that, I tracked my macros. I'm eating at maintenance now, about 2,100, 2,200-ish calories as a 5'7" male, and I'm happy for right now at the time of recording this video. But like I said, this identity of being in the gym, doing bodybuilding or powerlifting related things is important to me. And I like the incremental progress because it allows me to make some gains later on in life. When I'm 40 years old, 50 years old, I don't plan on stopping lifting. That is the identity I have, whether it's lifting now, lifting 5 years from now, lifting 10 years from now. I still plan on doing that. And I am glad for that part of my identity versus just hitting a goal and then turning it off. And that long-term mindset is what I think needs to change with the fitness industry overall. It upsets me that there are no cooking classes and basic nutritional guidelines in schools to help people learn and make healthier decisions throughout the rest of their life. It upsets me that a lot of fitness programs, especially for people who've never touched the gym before, are prohibitively expensive, and dare I say, some of the prohibitively expensive options are the worst options as far as good educational knowledge and programs. And it upsets me that we have a society that reinforces a lot of self-sabotaging thoughts and behaviors around health and fitness based on how we look versus how we perform. I dare say our actions always are better than how we look or how we are perceived. And when you're a better person, better partner, better friend, you are just better as a human being in general. And people appreciate that more in the long run. I know for me personally, when I'm about 10 pounds heavier, about 155, encroaching 160 pounds. I am so productive. I am so happy. I'm more willing to do YouTube videos. I'm willing to try new games and experiences. But when I'm leaner, I'm like, leave me alone. I want to play my games. I want to just do my own thing because I am managing stress and I want to stay within my comfort zone. And sometimes our bandwidth for our comfort zone is very different, whether you're a fluffier person or a leaner person. I dare say that sometimes being leaner is worse off for most people. As I've been alluding to throughout this video, this is a problem of identity. When I was 15 years old, I had the identity that I was someone who played World of Warcraft and made a lot of unhealthy decisions. And I want to say those unhealthy decisions were not by choice. It was convenient. I was a teenager, and on top of that, I didn't know any better. At 30 years old, I have really changed my identity to adopt healthier choices, and there are still times in which I enjoy playing World of Warcraft. But there are also times when making those healthy choices is not the easy decision. And there are days, weeks, months where I'm just like, I don't want to eat that cauliflower rice today. I don't want to go to the gym today. But sometimes we do these things because we know it's good for us and it helps us. And that's just become part of my identity. I am now someone who identifies with going to the gym in addition to identifying that I like to play video games. And I've accepted that because there was a point in my early 20s when I was like, I'm never touching video games again. I'm above that. It's like, no, come on, dude. Like, okay, fine, sure, I could not play video games again, but now I'm only the fitness person. I'm completely cutting off this other part of my life, and that's not healthy either. In reality, when it comes to our identity, it is a constantly evolving part of us, where our identity might be doing more fitness-related things at this point of our life. But hey, I'm now suddenly interested in this. I'm currently in a big kick where I love baking sourdough bread, and therefore I'm going to make that part of my identity and share that with people, and hopefully they enjoy it. But then that mindset also encapsulates the fact that if there's a part of my identity that is no longer serving me, it's worth pivoting completely or partially or not at all. It really just depends on what you are and who you want to become. What is your identity as a person? The reason why I wanted to make this video is because your identity as a person may not come to you as easily as another's. When I first started, it was not easy for me to adopt the identity of being healthy because I was more interested in smoking weed, playing video games, and binge eating. And I've had to change a lot of those behaviors because I knew it was going to really hurt me in the long run, whether I was either going to lose teeth or never ever lose weight. There's parts of my identity that I felt were harder for me to adopt, especially when I see on social media where some people, it just comes to them like that. And that's a little demoralizing sometimes. So what I mean behind in making this video is the words that mainly I need to hear, but maybe you'll resonate with this too. You are more than what you look like. But what I really want anyone watching this to take away is that it might just take a little longer for you, and just be willing to try, because that is something that a lot of people struggle with, and I still struggle with all the time. It's your fitness journey or your life journey in general. So you should stop letting people on the internet fuck with it. And remember, eat your protein. 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and you make some